Mic check, 1, 2, 3.
It was a home base. People held the space. People talked to each other. People knew each other. People went out and did other protests. And then they came back. This is Occupy Chuck. We're here. Some of our friends are going to do other things. And they'll come back. New friends will come. We're occupying. We're here. We're here together. New cameras have come in. We should tell folks why we're here. Earlier we told stories. That made everybody cry. That made everybody shout. Folks want to hear. Why we are here. Let's keep going.
Why are you here?
Mike check.
Just underscore.
Underscore.
What King just said.
What King just said?
King. We call him
Okay.
King. His name is King. Anyway, we need to hear. Your personal story.
This is Sabrina Williams with ACT.tv, and you are watching live coverage of the Stop Kavanaugh rally and protest in Washington, D.C. We are in the Hart Senate building, and you can see around me are a number of protesters here doing whatever they can to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. As many of you know, confirmation hearings have been going on in the Senate this week. They began Tuesday, and I believe they will end this week or early next week. And there have been constant disruptions of those hearings by protesters. There have been constant rallies down here in Washington, D.C. in the Senate buildings. Currently, right now, there is an occupation of Senator Grassley from Iowa's Senate office. There will, we've heard, likely be arrests soon. So right now we have protesters who are around telling their stories and gathering support for the fact that should Brett Kavanaugh be confirmed to the Supreme Court, it will likely be the end of reproductive rights as we know it in the United States. despite the fact that the majority of Americans support reproductive freedom, reproductive choice, and access to abortion. We were lucky enough to actually speak with Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon earlier. Let's go to some of that footage where he talks about why Brett Kavanaugh would be so destructive for American democracy if he were to be confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. This is ACT-TV and you're watching live. Let's go to Senator Merkley. I'm sorry, let's actually go to the occupation of Senator Grassley's office, where protesters are occupying his office, and we understand arrests are imminent at this point. Stay with us for live.
Fight with me.
Fight with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't even open my water bottle.
I'll open it.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Thank you.
So we need to make it clear
So we need to make it clear
to the Democrats on the committee
to the Democrats on the committee
that we're fighting and holding this space,
that we're fighting and holding the space,
and we expect them to fight harder.
and we expect them to fight harder.
We demand them to fight harder,
We demand them to fight harder,
to do everything they can
to do everything they can
to stop this judge
to stop this judge
from being confirmed to the Supreme Court.
from being confirmed to the Supreme Court.
Join us.
Join us.
Party at Chuck's.
Yes.
Who's next?
Occupy Chuck.
We can go back to watching the hearing, or we can
Mic check.
check.
My name is Travis.
My name is Travis.
My mom's name is Jennifer.
My mom's name is Jennifer.
My family are from Guyana.
My family are from Guyana.
I'm a first-generation American.
I'm a first-generation American.
My mom had me
My mom had me
when she was a single mom.
when she was a single mom.
She worked up until the day she gave birth.
She worked up until the day she gave birth.
I was born 2 months premature.
I was born 2 months premature.
She did not know if I would survive.
She did not know if I would survive.
The day after she gave birth,
The day after she gave birth,
she was forced to go back to work
she was forced to go back to work
on her feet all day
on her feet all day
because she could not choose
because she could not choose
between paying the rent and caring for a sick loved one.
between paying the rent and caring for a sick loved one.
My mom
My mom
is also
is also
one of the 1 in 4
one of the 1 in 4
women who have had an abortion in their lifetime.
who have had an abortion in their lifetime.
My mom
My mom
has experienced
has experienced
wanted and unwanted
wanted and unwanted
pregnancies.
pregnancies.
My mom taught me
My mom taught me
to stand up
to stand up
for reproductive freedom.
for reproductive freedom.
My mom
My mom
is the strongest woman
is the strongest woman
I know.
I know.
I would not be here
I would not be here
occupying this office
occupying this office
at the precipice of the potential overturning of Roe
at the precipice of the potential overturning of Roe.
if I didn't know a loved one
If I didn't know a loved one
who accessed abortion care.
who accessed abortion care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing down, we hear the voice of our great. free our people now. Women gonna rise like the water, gonna shut this hearing down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, free our people now. Yeah.
Mic check.
Mic check.
I am David Freeman from North Carolina.
I'm David Freeman from North Carolina.
I have lived a life of privilege.
I have lived a life of privilege.
I have friends who have also lived a life of privilege.
I have friends who have also lived a life of privilege.
But due to accident, or due to disease, they have suddenly found themselves in great need and abandoned by our society. We need to always focus on people with disabilities, people of color. These issues cross all other issues. I am grateful for all the leadership of these powerful women, the LGBTQ community, people of color, and people with disabilities. Thank you for opening my eyes. I love you all.
You're watching ACT TV. This is Sabrina Williams, live from Washington, D.C. I am in the atrium of the Hart Senate building, surrounded by protesters here with one objective, and that is to stop Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the U.S. Supreme Court. As many of you know, confirmation hearings are underway in the Senate just this week, and there have been multiple disruptions by protesters who are concerned that Brett Kavanaugh would overturn Roe v. or not overturn, but roll back abortion protections that we take for granted under Roe v. Wade, would roll back environmental protections for workers, voting rights laws. I mean, there's so many areas of a democracy and of American lives where Brett Kavanaugh would frankly be a train wreck and just disastrous for us. So we have, as you can see, a number of protesters. They've been here every day, and I understand will continue to be here throughout the week, making their voices heard. We were lucky enough to speak with Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon earlier today. He spoke about the disastrous nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court and what a terrible thing would be for U.S. democracy should he be confirmed. Let's actually go to that, his words. Let's actually go to his interview and hear Jeff Merkley of Oregon speak.
And that alone should disqualify from being considered. But here he is saying a president can't be indicted, a president can't be investigated by Citizens United and dark money. If an ordinary citizen can put $100 into a campaign, which is a lot, but the Koch brothers can put $100 million, they get 1,000,000 times the weight. That is not a democracy. And so the court has actively destroying the very foundation. Well, Kavanaugh represents the worst of all three forms of this corruption of our government. And then it comes to individual liberty, and I like the T-shirt, pro-freedom, pro-justice, pro-choice. But Kavanaugh has no interest in the rights of the women in America, of reproductive rights, and in fact, the opposite. And so you're appropriate to wear T-shirts that say, I am what is at stake, because directly, immediately, we can envision a Supreme Court decision with Kavanaugh in the majority, taking away the rights of America's women. And so thank you for coming here to the Capitol. Thank you for protesting, making your voices heard. We need to hear those voices back in the states where key Republicans are, so that they decide to stand up for our Constitution instead of standing up for the privileged, standing up for our rights rather than standing up for the powerful, embracing their responsibility under their oath of office to support the vision of the Constitution, not simply the power politics that are destroying our country. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
What should constituents be doing at home to ensure that Kavanaugh is stopped in his tracks and not nominated?
Well, my folks back home in Oregon are reaching out to their friends and family and members of their associations in other states, so that those folks will weigh in with their senators. Folks in Oregon know where their two senators stand. We are both opposed to Kavanaugh for all the reasons I've been articulating, but they can use their power through their networks to put pressure in other states.
What are some of the biggest reasons that you feel like Kavanaugh would be terrible for Americans and American democracy?
Well, at the heart of it is he's supporting the corruption of our Constitution. These three forces that he's shown no interest in fact, has supported the opposite: gerrymandering, voter suppression, dark money in politics. In fact, he's bragged with others that he is more pure on the First Amendment, meaning that he is saying that the First Amendment should be stretched into a form never imagined that does the opposite of the principle of our Constitution of government of, by, and for the people, and instead becomes of, by, and for the powerful, that the powerful should have a voice 1,000,000 times larger than that of the average citizen. The result is what we saw last year in 2017. We saw the theft of a Supreme Court seat in conditions never seen before in America. We saw a bank heist of $1.5 trillion through a tax bill, and the money was distributed to the richest Americans. That's what happens in corrupt, developing countries where a military and governmental elite robs the country and distributes the assets to their richest cronies. That's what we saw here in America last year. We saw the main emphasis of the Senate leadership was to strike down health care for 30 million Americans. And only because John McCain joined us at the last second were we able to stop that. So we're seeing government by and for the powerful on a daily basis here. Kavanaugh certainly represents that, and he represents more. Anti-worker, anti-consumer, anti-healthcare in general, but then also directly opposed to the reproductive rights of America's women.
Last question. If Democrats take back the House, will there be a Trump impeachment?
Well, you'd have to talk to the House about that.
What will the Senate be doing?
Well, the Senate serves as a jury. The impeachment is the equivalent of an indictment. And so, therefore, the House would act, and if they would come over to the Senate for a trial. I can tell you from my personal point of view that I will have to weigh all the evidence when it comes, but I think there's a tremendous amount of misconduct that's already been revealed to the public. We have tremendous misuse of taking funds from foreign governments, which is banned by our Constitution. In fact, other presidents, if they were given so much as a medal from another country, they asked the permission of Congress to accept it. This president is taking money from other governments on a daily basis through his business enterprises that he refused to disassociate himself from. We see from Bob Woodward's book about the enormous amount of what I think he used the term, it's crazy town in the White House, that only kind of a few adults in senior positions are trying to keep devastating things from happening. We have the New York op-ed from in the newspaper this morning by a senior official of the White House saying basically the same thing, that there's a few folks trying to keep things from completely going off the rails. We have a president who knows very little about anything, has no basic core principles, and our republic's in trouble. So we need to elect a Democratic Congress and hopefully a Democratic Senate to serve to rebuff America having gone so deeply and profoundly off track on many things, including the corruption of our Constitution, the assault on women's reproductive rights, the assault on consumers, on workers, the assault on the environment. This is not our America. Our America believes in equal opportunity for every individual, believes that there needs to be major good-paying jobs for the foundation of families. That families need to be supported not through just the opportunity for good-paying jobs, but for good health care and good education. And so there's a lot of work to do.
Thank you so much. Would you be willing to take photos with a
Sure, let's do
volunteers?
Right, but as far as it's a thing. Right. Oh, do we have it's not what's happening process.
Join us. Party Chuck.
Do you remember those cars?
Brought over here.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning. We're showered and fresh. I love it. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I can hear you.
That's really loud though. I should turn that down.
Sure, you can bring a hot pot with you.
I've got a call.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
He's talking about really great.
I've also got anybody else right now? I'm not paid. Don't think.
I make a little comment.
Send money.
What's your name? Margaret. No, it's Hi, activists. We're here occupying Chuck Grassley's office to get him to do the civic duty and allow the senators to make a proper review of Chuck Kavanaugh, or Brett Kavanaugh's office before we confirm him as the Supreme Court nominee. A lot of the people here have been here since very, very early in the morning. We're going to go talk to them. Heidi, will you talk to us? Are you eating? Sorry. This is the famous Heidi Seek.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Heidi Seek with Vote Pro Choice. We're day 3 here at the Hart Building. We're occupying Chuck Grassley's office for 3 hours now. I think we're on 3 hours, and we're not going to stop. So anybody out there who's around D.C., come on down. We're having lunch with Chuck. We're going to hang out at Chuck's office, Occupy Chuck, hashtag Occupy Chuck. And we're here because well, first of all, we want these hearings to be stopped. We don't think that a criminal president should be able to appoint a member of the Supreme Court. And so that's primarily our issue, is these hearings are a travesty of justice and they have to be stopped. They are continuing to go forward, so we have to do whatever we can to make sure that our voices are heard. That's the most important thing. Because these senators and this committee and Brett Kavanaugh are just going to barrel forward to make sure that they stay in power, and they don't care that their policies and their perspectives kill people and hurt people. And so we're here to make sure that our stories are told and our voices are heard.
Thank you so much, Heidi. And you were arrested earlier in the week during these hearings. How did you feel about the way that went?
Well, this is. I'm glad you asked me that question. The message I want to send out to everybody is, yeah, we were the first group that got arrested. We got a lot of coverage. It was a lot of attention. But those arrests and the protests and the voices of the people have never stopped. There are folks being arrested all the time. We were just the first group of women and the organizers of this collective action. This is absolutely a collective action. I am privileged to be part of the community of people who are here representing all the voices of the people that can't be here with us and that definitely are not being represented by Kavanaugh and Jeff Sessions and Chuck Grassley. So getting arrested that first day was just one moment in 3 days of people stepping up and putting their bodies on the line. Because here's the thing. just a few hours for me of being uncomfortable and having to pay a fine and getting a misdemeanor is absolutely nothing compared to the extraordinary impact that Brett Kavanaugh and the Supreme Court will have on people, women's reproductive freedom, immigrants' rights, health care for everybody. It's just an endless threat to our way of being.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you.
So come on down, Occupy Chuck. Come on down.
Food,
Heart Building 135, and we'd love to have you.
Unofficially.
and it's easy to get to. It's right when you.
To Amira Sequeira. She is an amazing activist. Who, despite being from Canada, has been fighting here in the United States. Alongside with many of us in the room. Specifically AIDS activists. Since she was 17 years old, 16 years old, very young. 16 years old. Very young. And right now, she has dedicated herself.
You are watching ACT TV, and we are live in Washington, D.C. at the Hart Senate Office Building. I'm surrounded, as you can see, by protesters who are here with one objective, and that is to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. These protesters have been here. There have been a number of protesters. There have been a number of protests all week. These protesters have been here the majority of the week and will continue to be here, lifting up their voices, raising consciousness about why the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court is so detrimental for abortion rights, for workers, for the environment, for voting rights, for getting money out of politics, for elections, for the environment, for so many reasons. These people protest on behalf of all Americans. So just yesterday, during one of the hearings, protesters disrupted the hearings, trying to bring a halt to Kavanaugh's confirmation, and were arrested. One was our very own Heidi Seek, the head of Vote Pro-Choice, and Piper Paraboo, both courageous activists. Let's take actually a look at that footage that disrupted the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings yesterday.
Chairman, I therefore move to adjourn this hearing. Okay.
This is a mockery and a travesty of justice. This is a travesty of justice. We will not go back. Cancel Brett Kavanaugh. Adjourn the hearing. We can't over cancel this hearing. Send it to my family for your family.
Today we're standing in line to join the hearing for Brett Kavanaugh, who's being nominated for the Supreme Court.
This is the first day of the Kavanaugh hearings for the nomination by Trump of Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. And I think that while the president is under criminal investigation, he shouldn't be allowed to choose justices that will last for a generation, especially justices that are going to roll back women's equal rights.
This Supreme Court justice is a conservative, he's a religious zealot, and we believe wholeheartedly that Brett Kavanaugh getting onto the Supreme Court justice is going to take us back decades on women's rights, voter rights, on immigration, on LGBTQI issues. I mean, it is really outrageous.
So we're here to bear witness to this hearing. We're here to hold senators accountable to asking questions. We're hopeful that the Senate Democrats will do whatever it takes to delay or vote no or whatever it takes to make sure that this guy does not get on the Supreme Court.
there's just too much at stake.
We're here because we want to know why the American people aren't up in arms about this. This is a lifetime appointment. This guy is going to be there for the next, God knows, 40 years. So we really need to find ways to disrupt, and that's why we're here. We're here to let the Senate know that anybody who puts a vote on Kavanaugh is going to be up for re-election, is going to have an opponent, and we're going to primary them, or we're going to just run against them, because this is just unacceptable.
Call your senators, get out of the streets, get in their faces, write letters, send faxes, do all the things you can.
All the senators are going to have a vote after these hearings, and you need to make sure that your senator knows how you feel about this.
And I think right now everybody needs to be an activist. In this country, there's no choice but to be engaged in some sort of activity that is standing up for justice for the most marginalized and against this fascist administration.
We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. To talk about Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out. We've got some things to talk about. Chuck Grassley, come out.
My name is Stanley.
Go ahead, Stanley. My name is Stanley.
I am 22 years old.
I am 22 years old.
I am an immigrant.
I am an immigrant.
I am a young black male.
I am a young black male.
I am part of a generation.
I am part of a generation
that understands
that
our country is in deep trouble.
Is in deep trouble.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that understands that we are the last hope
that we are the last hope
for a sustainable planet.
for a sustainable planet.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that will die from climate change.
that will die from climate change.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that rejects this president
that rejects this president
with every fiber of our being,
with every fiber of our being,
with every beat of our hearts.
with every beat of our hearts.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that is changing the world.
that is changing the world.
Standing Rock.
Standing Rock.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
March for our lives.
March for our lives.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that refuses to settle
that refuses to settle
for a world
for a world
that since colonialism
that since colonialism
has been taken from us,
has been taken from us.
we have been forced
We have been forced
to live under our potential,
to live under our potential.
and we believe that Black Lives Matter,
Black Lives Matter.
that abortion is a human right,
That abortion is a human right.
education is a human right,
Education is a human right.
housing is a human right,
Housing is a human right.
and that all human beings
And all human beings
deserve the right to determine their own destiny.
to determine their own destiny.
So I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that will stand up,
that will stand up
and we will fight back,
and we will fight back
and we will will not be quiet.
And we will not be quiet.
And we will stop this evil.
And we will stop this evil.
By any means necessary.
Yes, by any means necessary. Yes.
I'm very
pro-choice.
Pro-choice.
Yeah.
My body, my rights.
My body, my rights. I don't
My
know.
body.
I had a girlfriend. Who got pregnant. Her husband.
There's McDonald's, folks.
Gave her a choice. It was either her life. Or the fetus's life. So she chose. Herself. I don't know how many is familiar with the 50s. But a lot of women could not get access to any kind of abortions. Well, or health care. And so what she done? She got a wire. Clothes hanger. And performed an abortion on herself. My girlfriend is not here today. My girlfriend bled to death. I want everyone to say no to Kavanaugh. Because I do not want my 14-year-old granddaughter to be 67 years old. Still fighting for the right to choose of what she wants to do with her own body. Thank you.
Stay pro, vote no.
This is Sabrina Williams with ACT.tv. We are live in Washington, D.C. at the Hart Senate building. As you can see, I am surrounded by protesters who for the umpteenth day now have been protesting the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court for many, many reasons. I'm here with a special guest and a special protester, not a prosecutor. What's your name and where are you from?
My name is Sally Roberts Wilson, and I'm from West Virginia.
And Sally, what brings you out here today to protest the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court?
I'm here to ask Senator Manchin to please, I know how much he cares about West Virginians being covered who have pre-existing conditions. I'm a West Virginian with pre-existing conditions. I was here to talk about my sister who died because she had a pre-existing condition and could not purchase insurance at any price prior to the passage of the ACA. And Brett Kavanaugh has demonstrated in his writings that he has an antipathy to provisions of the ACA, a deference to corporate concerns, and I feel that puts me and my family, my neighbors, and people all over this country at risk of dying, as my sister did.
And so your senator, you said, is Joe Manchin in West Virginia, correct? Who is a Democrat?
Yes, that's right.
And why do you think he will vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh?
I don't know how he will vote, and I'm here to ask him because I know of his concern for West Virginians and all people with pre-existing conditions. I know this is a very big concern of his, to consider that strongly and vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, it's clear from, surveys and research that the majority of Americans support not just abortion and climate protection, but also affordable universal health care for all people. And it's really interesting how our senators and our elected officials don't vote the way their constituents want them to. So if you had, if Joe Manchin was here right now, what would be your message to him?
With regard to health care?
Or anything.
Well, my personal message is support HR 676, which I think is the gold standard for medical care. That's my message to him. But short of that, please do not confirm Brett Kavanaugh, who will really put our lives at risk. My life, my family's life, the lives of many people in this country will most definitely be put at risk if he is confirmed. So.
Thank you so much, Sally, for being here. Your sister's memory is important, not just, I'm sure, to you and your family, but to all Americans. It brings up a very, very important topic, and that is that our elected officials and the Supreme Court of the United States are people who need to protect Americans, who need to work for the things that we want, and those things are health care, affordable, universal access to health care, affordable, safe access to abortion, climate protection, worker protection, voter protection, protection for Americans when it comes to police accountability. There's so many things that we rely on the Supreme Court to do. They interpret the law, and we want that law to be interpreted in the broadest, most judicious, most the way that Americans want to see the law interpreted. And that's not based on what we're hearing and seeing from Brett Kavanaugh. That's not what he would do. In fact, just today, Cory Booker, I understand, senator from, I believe, New Jersey, released a document showing that when Brett Kavanaugh worked in the Bush White House, he said in his own words that Roe was not settled case law and there was potentially no reason it couldn't be overturned. These are shocking words. This is a shocking development. Again, this is ACT.tv. We are live in Washington, D.C. at the Hart Senate office building. I'm surrounded by protesters who are here to say no to the Kavanaugh confirmation. Let's stop Kavanaugh now. Let's go to Grassley, Senator Grassley of Iowa's office, where protesters are occupying his office right now as we speak. Stay with us.
To help the American people, hear the voices of the most principled women in America. Those of you who've been here today are performing a patriotic service. Our country will be better because our voices have been heard. At some point, in the next few minutes, we are hoping that Tracy Corder, my good friend in the corner, is going to help us speak to the dozens of staffers from the Center for Popular Democracy that are assembled for their regular Thursday noon conference call. It's kind of a work thing, but it's really an important thing. During the Civil Rights Movement, during anti-war movements, during the AIDS movement, during the women's movement, during the movement for black liberation, during our current immigrant justice movement, and all the movements throughout American history. Nonprofits, labor unions, community groups, faith groups have worked together to make change. CPD is doing good work. Not always perfectly. But they're working hard. And they're supporting all of us. Who are trying to take action. So Tracy will step up. We should be ready for that. But the most important thing we should keep doing is telling our stories. The way we've been doing it. Helping each other and the whole country understand what's at stake.
I'm so sorry we interrupted you. Please continue if you feel comfortable. I really want to hear your story. Okay, Mike said.
My name's Erin Maloney.
My name's Erin Maloney.
Like a lot of women in this country, I woke up crying on November 8th, 2016.
Like a lot of women in this country, I woke up crying on November 8th, 2016.
I still find it hard to believe. That 62 million people voted for the person holding the Oval Office. When that person said that there were very fine people in Charlottesville that killed Heather Heyer, I decided to march. I haven't stopped marching since. And now that I'm woke, I'll keep marching till the day I die. So that all people have health care, a roof over their head, food security, a living wage, and be treated fair and equally under the laws in this country. That's all.
No, it's just funny the particular way that one is done.
Is
it? Two left.
Oh, yeah. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
There's a group. Rebecca's in there.
So, tell us about yourself.
Did you go to the hearing?
No, I didn't. I've been too chicken. Oh, tell me about myself.
Wait,
Hi.
would you like to share your story?
Do I have a story? I don't know.
Like,
I made a.
why are you inviting you to give an ad? I mean, you look like a pretty motivated protester.
I guess I am pretty motivated. So I'm actually.
You're watching ACT.tv. This is Sabrina Williams, and we are live in Washington, D.C. We are in the Hart Senate Office Building, where right behind me, protesters are occupying Senator Grassley's Senate office. He is a senator from Iowa, a Republican senator from Iowa, and these protesters have a message for him, and that is, they do not want Brett Kavanaugh to be confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. Protests have been going on all week here in Washington, D.C. and in other places around the country. Just yesterday, a group of protesters was arrested inside the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings here at the Senate, and we recently played some footage of that. There will be protests going on all day this week. Morning, noon, and night, ACT.tv will be bringing you those protests, those rallies, and these vigils live right here. Let's go back inside Grassley's office, where protesters are again occupying Senator Grassley, Republican from Iowa's Senate office, with the message that we do not want Brett Kavanaugh to be confirmed to the Supreme Court. He would be disastrous for Americans and disastrous for democracy. This is ACT TV, and you're watching live.
You don't know? She's praying for us.
Are you from Iowa?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, friends. Do we have any stories you want to share?
Okay. All right. Hi. Do you want to talk? Why are you here?
Well, I talked earlier, and I'll talk about something else this time.
Well, I talked earlier, and I'll talk about something else this time.
Earlier, I talked about our Constitution and how Judge Kavanaugh doesn't seem like he's particularly interested in upholding the separation of the powers and the checks and balances. So, but I want to talk about the people who aren't here, and I know a lot of people feel like there's a lot of good reasons for them not to step up and act up. I have a lot of people thanking me over and over again. I've been to a lot of actions. I've been arrested several times. And every time people thank me, I appreciate the support, but I'm always thinking, I am only doing my part. And although what I do helps hopefully everyone, if it's successful, we all have to do our part. People really do need to step up. People cannot count on me and you and you and you and you and you to do their part. And I know people have medical problems, but a lot of people with medical problems are here. And I know that people are disabled, but a lot of people who are disabled are here. And I know people have family that don't appreciate, that don't understand, and therefore don't appreciate what they're doing. But there are a lot of people here with families who don't appreciate and don't understand while they're here. And I know that a lot of people are elderly, but there are a lot of elderly people here. And everybody at home needs to find a way to have their voice heard. If they can't come to protests, send emails and really question whether or not you really can't come to protests. And if you can't send emails, then give money to the organizations that are doing this work. And try to do all of the above. Write letters to the editors, call your senators, but show up. I go to protest rallies all the time. After the Civil War, after Heather Heyer, I'm sorry if I said her name wrong, I was in Northwest Arkansas, a very red place, and around a Civil War statue, and that protest was organized in about, 18 hours, and it was raining. And it was, like I said, a very red place, and there were a lot of people there. And it was organized by high school students, by the way. And I might be confusing it. I think that was a different one. Anyway, a reporter asked me if I was impressed by how many people were there, considering that it was raining and considering that it was organized so quickly. And I said, where is everybody? There should be hundreds of thousands of people here. And yes, we are in Bentonville, Arkansas. And so, yeah, it kind of is impressive, but not really. Where is everybody? So that's what I want to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you willing to share with us? You have some paint going on. No?
Sorry, no.
That's okay. I understand. It's difficult to be put on the spot. So, who here has been here all morning? A lot of us have been, right? Okay, so what inspired you to come out in the first place?
To the protests overall?
Yeah.
because I believe that Judge Kavanaugh's potential and, assumed confirmation represents the consolidation of fascism in our country, that our democracy is being dismantled around us every day, assiduously, by this administration. And I just feel that people really need to be aware. I think a lot of Americans have a sense of wrongness and unhappiness with this regime, but I don't think they really understand the exquisite malevolence that is taking place among their elected parties and officials. And I think if more people understood what the warning signs are and like the very slippery slope that we're sliding down altogether too quickly, that they would be more motivated. And, everyone seems to be waiting for the blue wave. Everyone's waiting for the Mueller investigation. And that's great. I support every resistance effort that exists out there because this is a multi-pronged attack on our democracy and our liberty and our human rights. And I support a multifaceted response. But I just think that we need to be planning beyond that, because if those two things fail or are undermined, I don't want to see motivated people. I think the way that they win, the way any totalitarian regime has ever won, is by robbing the people of hope and a sense of their own power. We've already forgotten to some degree our own power in this, not as participatory a democracy as it should be. But I believe that democracy is not a spectator sport. I think it is something that you need to be active and vigilant about, that activism is the rent we pay for being on this planet. So I couldn't be anywhere else but here because I have a very active and loud conscience. And I feel that no matter what, I need to feel as though I'm doing something. So this is my doing something.
Thank you so much. And I think it's important you bring that up because Alexis de Tocqueville came to this country 200 years ago and pointed out that what makes America great is the fact that we do have this vibrant democracy where everybody's a part of it, whether they're working, middle, obviously wealthy, are always involved in everything. And we can get back to that place and hopefully a better version where people of color and women are counted as active citizens. And I think, who knows, maybe the upswell and all this energy has the potential to make America way greater than it was before all this bullshit took hold. And honestly, I think all the energy in this room for the past 4 hours or so is a very hopeful sign. Do you guys agree?
Yes, and we're not going to stop.
3.5. Oh, thank you, Lauren.
Timekeeper says.
My name is Stanley.
Go ahead, Stanley. My name is Stanley.
I am 22 years old.
I am 22 years old.
I am an immigrant.
I am an immigrant.
I am a young black male.
I am a young black male.
I am part of a generation.
I am part of a generation
that understands
that
our country is in deep trouble.
Is in deep trouble.
I'm a part of a generation.
I am part of a generation
that understands that we are the last hope.
That we are the last hope
for a sustainable planet.
For a sustainable planet.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that will die from climate change.
That will die from climate change.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that rejects this president.
That rejects this president.
With every fiber of our being.
With every fiber of our being.
With every beat of our hearts.
With every beat of our hearts.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that is changing the world.
That is changing the world.
Standing Rock.
Standing Rock.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
March for our lives.
March for our lives.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that refuses to settle.
That refuses to settle
for a world.
For a world
that since colonialism.
That since colonialism
has been taken from us.
Has been taken from us.
We have been forced.
We have been forced
to live under our potential.
To live under our potential.
And we believe. That Black Lives Matter.
That Black Lives Matter.
That abortion is a human right.
That abortion is a human right.
Education is a human right.
Education is a human right.
Housing is a human right.
Housing is a human right.
And that all human beings. Deserve the right to determine their own destiny. So I'm a part of a generation.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing here today?
Sure. So,
I'm going to try to focus on Kavanaugh, but this is really, as we all know, a direct relation to the 45th president. And to me, that's the starting point for why Kavanaugh should not have been nominated in the first place. He has a documented history of letting us know what his intentions are regarding presidents and their ability to work outside the law. He stated that he doesn't believe that a president should be able to be treated like everyone else in terms of criminality. I think that's why he was chosen. You know, the group that they were pulling from are basically, you know, carbon copies of each other in most other ways, except for that one stated belief that, you know, a president doesn't have to abide by the law. And so that's a beginning point for me. In terms of health care, we all have health care stories. I'm 53 years old. For most of my life, I bought what I was brought up with, which was that health care was a product that we all should purchase, and that, you know, it was to your advantage to behave yourself, to work hard, to find somebody with good insurance, to mind your manners in that way, because if you were a good citizen, then you could have good health care. And I don't believe that anymore. I think the rest of the modern world doesn't do it that way, and they have happier people, they have healthier people. We are in the 30s on fetal mortality. What is that? Maternal mortality, excuse me. We don't take care of women. I'm incensed at the people who are here who call themselves pro-life, because that is blankety blank blank. That is actually the words I have are stronger, so I'm not saying them. But they're absolute hypocrites. Because I have 4 children, I've been pregnant 4 times. That was my choice. Most of the women I know have had an abortion. I'm not going to call people out, but like most the women in my family, all my close friends, they've all had abortions at various times. I have no judgment on that. They had the choice. They made the choice they wanted to make. My children were born at 40 weeks, 37, 31, and 29. I gave birth to a 2-ounce daughter at 29 weeks. And if you equate that child with a pre-forming being, that's a disservice to actual humans to do that in the first place. I'm offended by people imposing their health care on choices on someone else, because that is what you're talking about. The babies that I had early as a college student were covered by Medicaid, or they would not be here. One of them required a lot of intense care. They were all in the ICU for a long time. It was paid for by the government. I used to feel so guilty about that. Like, I should have already had a job that paid for it, and so I'm using this welfare. But I felt guilty that my kids got the care they needed. In the past, I felt guilty for that, because we're brainwashed to believe that this is something that is it's a privilege to not die. And this up there person that's on the screen behind me right now, who I've now been arrested twice for giving him a piece of my mind for this week. The first 2 of my life ever, by the way, and I'd do it today if they would let me. So again, he doesn't care. He's with a group of people who agrees with what I used to believe, which is that to be alive, to stay alive, that you should have to work for that in such a way that you set yourself up to get the care. And if you don't, too bad.
We're not blocking anything.
It just needs to be large enough so people can get out. This is an ingress egress
price point for the entire office.
Absolutely. You are watching ACT TV, and we are live in the Senate, the Dirksen Senate building here in Washington, D.C. We're in the office of Senator Susan Collins of Maine, a Republican who talks a good talk on women's reproductive rights. But as you can see, many of her constituents and protesters are concerned about her vote on Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. These protesters are here occupying her office right now in her Senate building office, and they have one objective, and that is to ensure that Senator Susan Collins votes no on the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. Hearings are going on this week. The hearings have been continuously interrupted by protesters who are concerned with Kavanaugh's opinions, his writings on women's, on Roe v. Wade, on abortion, on labor rights, on voting rights, on environmental rights. And many protesters have gotten arrested. There have been vigils in the Hart Senate building all this week and will continue. And the objective is to ensure that our senators, both Democratic and Republican, vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. Not only would he be a train wreck for the U.S. Supreme Court, but for American democracy in general. Let's turn to some of the protesters. Is there anyone here from Maine who would like to speak on why they want Collins to vote no on Brett Kavanaugh? Can we? Yeah, stand up. Let's talk to you. We have a protester here who is so graciously and beautifully and courageously occupying Susan Collins' office. Why are you here today?
Well, we're hoping to meet with a member of her staff to talk about the real implications that this vote could have for not just Maine women and trans people, but people across the country who need access to safe and legal abortion. I spoke with the senator a couple weeks ago, and she assured me that she was confident that Brett Kavanaugh believed Roe v. Wade was settled precedent, and we brought copies of an email today that were leaked last night by Senator Booker's office that show quite clearly that he does not believe it's settled precedent, and that is a really dangerous possibility that he would vote to gut Roe v. Wade in the future. So we are asking her to continue her really strong legacy of standing up for reproductive rights and to vote no on this nomination.
If she were to not vote no, do you think that is political suicide for Susan Collins?
I don't know. I know that I wouldn't support it. And I am not alone in that.
Absolutely. And what does Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court mean for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm somebody who grew up in a pretty conservative household and was pretty anti-choice when I was growing up. I think the realization that I have autonomy over my own body was a huge revelation for me. And it terrifies me that we could have somebody on the highest court in the U.S. that doesn't believe that I have autonomy over my own body. So personally, it would be incredibly scary and also really offensive.
Thank you so much for being here and for protesting. As you can see, this is ACT TV. We are live in Senator Collins' Senate office that is clearly being occupied by a number of different protesters from organizations like Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Feminist Majority, and did I forget anything? No? Okay. And other organizations, they have been protesting all week at both the hearings in the Senate office buildings, and the objective is to get their senators to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. You at home can do something as well. Please call the Capitol Senate switchboard at 202-224-3121. Ask for both of your senators from your state and tell them you want them to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Do it today. Let's go back to Senator Grassley's office. Senator Grassley is a Republican from Iowa, and his office is his office is being occupied, but we're not going back there. We're actually going to stay here this is Senator Susan Collins' office, her Senate office. It's being occupied by by protesters who are with Planned Parenthood, NARAL, Feminist Majority. Does anyone have a copy of the email? Maybe let's just read it if we can. I read an article about this earlier today, where in Brett Kavanaugh's own words, he's responding to someone who's saying that Roe v. Wade is decided case law. And he says, I'm not sure that all legal scholars refer to Roe as the settled law of the land of the Supreme Court, since the court has always overruled its precedent. I'm sorry, am I reading the right thing? I'm not sure that all legal scholars refer to Roe as the settled law of the land at the Supreme Court level, since court can always overrule its precedent, and 3 current justices on the court would do so. The point there is in the inferior court point. The point is, Brett Kavanaugh has told senators in previous interviews that Roe v. Wade is settled case law. But clearly his words in this email from the time he worked in the Bush White House contradict those words, that he feels like Roe could be overturned. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, that could put in peril and in jeopardy abortion rights for all Americans, because abortion rights don't just impact women, they impact families, they impact men, they impact fathers and children. So again, we are at Susan Collins. She's a Republican from the state of Maine. Her office is being occupied, just as the office of Senator Grassley from Iowa's office is being occupied right now by protesters with a clear message, and that is to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. If there's anyone else who would like to speak, let's come over here. So tell me, what's your name and why are you here today?
My name is Tiffany Hankins. I'm the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Washington in Washington State. So I came pretty far to be here today. I'm here representing our tens of thousands of members who are very concerned, not just about the votes of our senators in Washington State, but the vote of Senator Collins. So our members have actually spent weeks calling into other NARAL members' homes, asking them to make a phone call to Senator Collins, to Senator Murkowski, asking them to vote no, because their votes will affect us all. It's not just Maine women who will be affected. It's not just Alaskan women who will be affected. Every single one of us across the country will be affected by their vote.
And why would Senator Collins vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh when it seems she's been a relatively strong supporter of women's rights and abortion access?
Well, we hope she stays consistent in that, and that's why we're here right now, to deliver this very clear evidence that Brett Kavanaugh is not to be trusted about whether he would vote to overturn Roe versus Wade.
So what would you like people at home to do? What can they do to ensure that senators like Susan Collins, Senator Grassley, and other senators vote no on Brett Kavanaugh? What can they do right now?
We know that phones are already ringing off the hooks. Keep calling, keep writing, keep tweeting at your senators. The pressure is high, especially with the release of these documents. It's more clear than ever that Brett Kavanaugh is a direct threat to Roe versus Wade, so do not let up the grassroots pressure. We won this with the Affordable Care Act fight, and we can win this again.
Just very quick for folks who either didn't understand my very rambling statements earlier or are just new to this, what documents are you talking about that were released? That's really kind of breaking news right now.
Senator Cory Booker just released some committee confidential documents that outline from Kavanaugh's time in Bush's White House that he does not believe that Roe versus Wade is settled law.
That's pretty damning evidence, and very contradictory to what he said. So again, thank you so much for speaking with me. Tell me your name one more time.
Tiffany Hankins.
So again, you are watching ACT TV, and we are live at the occupation of Susan Collins, Senator Susan Collins' office in the Dirksen Senate building in Washington, D.C. These protesters are from Planned Parenthood, Feminist Majority, and NARAL, and they have a clear message to Susan Collins, and that is vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh, or your political career is in jeopardy. Thanks for watching. We are live. Don't go anywhere. We will be live for quite a while longer, and we're going back to Senator Grassley's office that is being occupied at this moment right now by
Cancel Kavanaugh! 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 Cancel
Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. Cancel Kavanaugh. All right. I'll do mic check. Mic check. Mic check. You don't have to mic check that. Hi everybody. Heidi Seek from Vote Pro Choice, and we're here in almost hour number 4 of Occupy Chuck. Yes. So hashtag Occupy Chuck. Come on down if you're still around. We are here. We're so excited to be here. But I wanted to have a chat about values. The values that we're sitting here for, and that the values that they have are not our values. They value greed, they value power, they value patriarchy, they value corruption, they value lack of accountability. And what do we stand for? What do we stand for? Freedom, justice, fairness, transparency, accountability. So that's why we stand here. Anybody there's lots of things to do here if you want to come on down to Heart Building. But we are here because we know that Brett Kavanaugh is absolutely going to take away our freedom and our rights. And what are they up to? Brett Kavanaugh is going to take away our freedom and our rights, and that's why we're standing here. And that's why it's so important to have our voices continue to be heard. So our stories is 1 in 4 women have terminated pregnancy before the age of 45. 2/3 of those are mothers. 87% of the women who have terminated a pregnancy don't regret it. We are a pro-choice nation. I don't know what the hell they're thinking. Brett Kavanaugh keeps saying, I understand when it comes to reproductive freedom. He does not understand. Let's be very clear. Brett Kavanaugh does not understand anything about the reality of what it means to be a woman in the world or a person in childbearing range. That includes our trans folk and trans people. So we have to really call them into our freedom is at stake, our bodies are at stake. And here's the most important thing. There's a difference between if you believe a governor or a government should have jurisdiction over your body. We do not believe that. Brett Kavanaugh does, period. That's what we fight for. All right, who's next?
So we have people filtering out, I think, to another action. It's important to realize that when we were here this morning, it was wild. You could not stand or breathe. This office was packed tight. We had cops come in and inform us that their 30-minute maximum because of what will self-immolate, burst into flames or something. So we now have maximum in here 30 citizens at a time. But people are filtering in and out, trading shifts. And like Heidi said, this fight is not over. Please continue to call your senators. And, did we just lose power?
We'll never lose power.
We will never lose power. We'll just lose lighting, okay? That's right, ladies. Thank you. But yeah, so I would love to hear from more of the people about how they feel doing here. Alex, would you be willing to talk to us? Would you mind talking to us?
They're going to go back to Colin's office.
Okay,
and
all
then
right.
they're going to come back to us.
Involving a meeting where you were asked for your opinion about how Justice Kennedy might react to certain legal arguments that people in the administration are pushing. Is that right? You answered that question. It says that indefinite detention of an American citizen without access to a lawyer time.
We're ready when you are.
It seems like a fairly unremarkable proposition to me. I don't think anyone disputes that argument.
You are watching ACT-TV, and we are live at an occupation of Senator Susan Collins of Maine's Senate office. These protesters are from a number of different organizations, including Feminist Majority, NARAL, and Planned Parenthood. These protesters are here with a clear message for Susan Collins, and that is vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh or risk political suicide. I am here with one of the protesters. Introduce yourself for the audience, please.
My name is Tarina Keene, and I'm actually the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Virginia. So I've come over from the Commonwealth of Virginia to make sure that we are making our voices heard here on the Hill today.
And what's your message for Susan Collins?
Susan Collins has been a longtime champion for reproductive rights, and this is a critical moment where she needs to really step up and show her leadership. This is a moment where, the women, not just in Maine, not just in Virginia, but around this country, really need her to take a good hard look at Brett Kavanaugh and decide whether he is the right person for this nomination. And right now, I can tell you that he's not. And we know today that there were emails that came out that basically go against what he's already said to multiple people, to senators, to the committee, that he thinks that Roe is already settled law. But we have, in his own words, emails that say the opposite. So who is Brett Kavanaugh? What does he really believe? Well, we're all here today because we know what he believes. We know how he decided in the Jane Doe case just last October. We know, that he's also said that he's really supported the dissent in Roe that was written by Justice Rehnquist. So we have everything that we need to know, and so does Senator Collins. So we hope that she will really step up for the women of the United States and say, this is not the right person for this job, especially for a lifetime appointment.
Has Senator Collins given any indication of how she will vote on Brett Kavanaugh?
I have heard her say in different media reports that that he has told her personally that he thinks that Roe is settled law. Well, we all know what that's just code for saying, especially when you go to the Supreme Court, nothing is ever really settled. And that's where any case or any issue that we find ourselves debating, especially one as contentious as reproductive rights, would keep going to the court to get confirmation on that. So we know that this is one of the most contentious issues of our day in this country. We believe that Roe is settled law. We believe that reproductive rights are human rights, and that these are issues that women hold deeply personal, and no one else, especially a justice or especially the government, should be making decisions. This is a personal decision, and I can tell you that I think I'm here today to stand up for what's at stake for my daughter, who is 5, and I want to make sure that she grows up in a world where she can make the same decisions that I've been able to make for my life when it comes to whether it's using birth control or having an abortion. These are things that you need to have control of your life to decide if, when, how, and with whom to become a parent.
There have been protests disrupting the hearings, which has been great. The occupation, clearly, of Senate offices, of the Senate buildings, the atriums, the lobbies. Will we continue to see more of that during the hearings and potentially after, whether he's confirmed or not?
Well, this has been going on for a couple of months. This is just sort of coming to a head right now because of the hearings. But we will be here day and night through the hearings and after, making sure that our voices are being heard, not just I'm representing the women of Virginia, but for every woman, every person who can become pregnant in the United States should be very aware of what's at stake right now. And I don't want to leave out the men who actually, this is something that we should all be concerned about, because this is about bodily autonomy. This is about personal freedom and liberty. And if you can take this away from a woman, then you can take any right away. So this is a critical moment for not only this particular issue, but for our democracy at large.
And what can people in Virginia, in Maine, and across the country do to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court?
Keep speaking up. Call your senators. This is not a done deal. We believe we can win. We believe we can stop this confirmation dead in its tracks. Brett Kavanaugh is not the person to be given a lifetime appointment on the United States Supreme Court. So we can do this. We just need everybody to step up and step forward, make your voices heard, let your senators know, let everybody know. Call your friends, call your family, call your coworkers. This is the moment. This is our moment. We have to get this done now.
Thank you so much. You did a great job. Again, this is ACT.tv, and we are live in Senator Susan Collins' Senate office. It is being occupied by protesters who want her to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. You at home can do something right now. Pick up your cell phone and dial 202-224-3121. Ask for the senators from your state, there's 2 of them, and tell them that you want them to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Your rights and our democracy depends on it. Do it today.
And the court did exactly as it wanted it to do, and as a result, the regulation stood. The regulation that Senator Booker is.
Okay, so breaking news we've just heard is that they're not allowing any more public into the confirmation hearings because we have created such a ruckus, and as the New York Times front page described it on Tuesday, pandemonium, that they're now running scared and won't allow us in. So they have shut out the public, and I'm not quite sure if it's an actual, I do believe it's a right of ours to be able to be present at those hearings. So it might represent an impingement upon our human rights, which would, not be the first time for this administration. But there are people online, outside, lined up, waiting in the hot sun to get in. And, neither Republicans nor liberals, they're allowing to come be participating in their own democratic process and exercising their right to view these goings on and, if I dare say, these shenanigans that are happening in the name of some false democracy. That's apparently what's going on the ground here. Hopefully we can change their minds. And I think if it is actually a breach of law, hopefully get in time a threat of a lawsuit that might make them allow Americans to start participating in this building that we own, that belongs to us, and watch people who we employ who serve us or who are supposed to, and who clearly need a very strong reminder of that.
That is correct. I didn't either, but I found that out last night. Can you name the 9 cities where this firm has offices?
And we are live from Senator Susan Collins' office. This is her Senate office in the Hart Senate building, in the Dirksen office building. She is a senator from Maine who has been a relatively great champion and partner for women's rights, but has expressed some a potential leaning to confirm Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, which, given his writings, given some newly released emails by Senator Cory Booker last night that confirmed that he does not believe that Roe v. Wade is settled case law, her vote no is of the utmost importance now. Her protesters, some of which are from Maine and are from organizations like Planned Parenthood, Feminist Majority, and NARAL, have one objective, that is to get her to vote no, as well as many other senators. Currently, right now, Senator Grassley's office is being occupied as well. There have been disruptions to the hearings all week. There have been occupations of Senate offices and Senate buildings, and the objective is to stop Brett Kavanaugh from a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court. As you can see, these protesters are watching from Senator Collins' office the confirmation hearing of Brett Kavanaugh right now. So again, Senator Collins' Senate office being occupied by anti-Kavanaugh protesters.
President has authority under the
Constitution, the executive power.
And thank you for raising your voices. It's a very important, crucial time. I just put it in my personal context. So I was born in 1953. It was a very different time in America. Separate but equal was the law of the land. There's a lot of different things. I like to say, you know, women were in the kitchen, right? And, you know, blacks were in the back of the bus. Literally, you know, gay people were in the closet. It's wonderful to have arrived in 2018 when my grandson can have a birthday party and his little friend in 5th grade has 2 fathers. Right? And like nobody blinks an eye because those are the parents. And it's wonderful to see my 30-year-old daughter have guaranteed access to every medical procedure. And it's on her. We raised her, gave her the best we could in terms of guidance and morals and values, and then we said, you're free, independent young woman. We respect the decisions. And I think the government should respect that process that all families go through in raising their children. This is an issue that is personal. I'll end with this. My wife, she'll tell me, Luis, I would never have an abortion. I don't care when to what. That's what she says. I believe her. But I'm going to tell you something. She's the first one to honk when she sees a... Because it's about choice. It's about your decision. It's about us taking our religious views out of this process, right? There's a separation. And I wasn't happy when they told me not to show up to church to mass one day. That wasn't a happy day for me. But you know what? I was fulfilling my constitutional responsibility that I'm here to uphold. So I'm going to go vote. You guys keep working.
Save Roe, vote no. 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 Save Roe, vote no.
Good. Brad, that was Senator Gutierrez. He was asking her to resign. It was a really good letter. Yeah.
Wait, so you didn't tell me about your...
Oh yeah, and Senator Gutierrez will also like make things jump too.
Yeah. Tuesday? Tuesday?
I am 22 years old.
I am 22 years old.
I am an immigrant.
I am an immigrant.
I am a young black male.
I am a young black male.
I am part of a generation.
I am part of a generation
that understands
that
our country is in deep trouble.
Is in deep trouble.
I'm a part of a generation
I'm a part of a generation
that understands that we are the last hope.
That we are the last hope
for a sustainable planet.
For a sustainable planet.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that will die from climate change.
That will die from climate change.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that rejects this president.
That rejects this president.
With every fiber of our being.
With every fiber of our being.
With every beat of our hearts.
With every beat of our hearts.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that is changing the world.
That is changing the world.
Standing Rock.
Standing Rock.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
March for our lives.
March for our lives.
I'm a part of a generation.
I'm a part of a generation
that refuses to settle.
That refuses to settle
for a world.
For a world
that since colonialism.
That since colonialism
has been taken from us.
Has been taken from us.
We have been forced.
We have been forced
to live under our potential.
To live under our potential.
And we believe.
And we believe
that Black Lives Matter.
That Black Lives Matter.
That abortion is a human right.
That abortion is a human right.
Education is a human right.
Education is a human right.
Housing is a human right.
Housing is a human right.
And that all human beings. Deserve the right to determine their own destiny. So I'm a part of a generation that will stand up. And we will fight back. And we will not be quiet.
And we will not be quiet.
And we will stop this evil.
And we will stop this evil.
By any means necessary.
Yes, by any means necessary. Yes.
Nixon fired him. Nixon fired Archibald Cox, and we all know how that turned out. And I'm not going to ask you to respond to this, but it seems to me that this remains.
You are watching ACT.tv Live. We are in Susan Collins' Senate office. As you can see, I'm surrounded by protesters, several of which are from the state of Maine, where Susan Collins represents. They have a message for her, and that is to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh, to vote no. This is not a lifetime appointment that many Americans, most Americans, want on the Supreme Court. Brett Kavanaugh is the most unpopular Supreme Court representative, a Supreme Court nominee. There's someone who works for Senator Collins who's actually speaking now. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Hi. I'm a constituent from Maine. I'm from Winslow, Maine.
Nice to meet you. I'm Katie. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you too. I just wanted you to pass on to Susan Collins, like, we understand that it's really hard to vote against your own party, but we know that she has before, and she really cares about her constituents and not just voting on party lines. And it's very, very important that for this lifetime Supreme Court appointment that she vote against him to protect Roe v. Wade, which she has already said that she wants to protect, but also to protect her constituents, to make sure that they have access to health care and stuff as well.
Great. Well, thanks for stopping by. Are there others in the group from Maine, or you are? Okay, hi, I'm Katie.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Adrian. I'm from BC, which is right outside Bangor. So we're just in to talk with the senator's staff about what's on her mind as she's making up her decision. I actually met the senator a couple weeks ago in an airport and talked to her for like 15 minutes.
How did it go? Good?
Well, we had an interesting conversation. And she was really adamant that she's worked really hard to protect women's right to choose, even when it's been really hard as a Republican.
Right.
And we are so grateful for that. We talked, obviously, about the Kavanaugh nomination and how she had met with him and really he believed that Roe v. Wade is settled precedent. And I talked to her about how that is still really concerning to me. And then I think with the release, of these emails, which I'm sure you've seen, in which Brett Kavanaugh, says that he doesn't believe that it's necessarily settled precedent.
Does he say he doesn't?
He says, I'm not sure that all legal scholars refer to Roe as the settled law of the land, which really casts into doubt that he believes that is a legal settled precedent. He doesn't say personally what he believes, but I think that statement is really concerning to me personally, and to obviously people across the country who depend on access to safe and legal abortion.
Sure.
So
I can jump in with a couple.
Please do.
Yeah, my name's Ann. I live in Washington D.C.
Nice
I
to
don't
meet
have
you.
any senators. It's nice to meet you.
Hi.
Hey, sorry, I was outside. Hi, Katie. And we have folks here from a lot of other states. I know my colleague from Washington State is back here. I have a colleague here from Virginia. I was meeting other folks. We've got Feminist Majority here with us. There are people from all across the country here, even some unaffiliated feminists that just saw what we were doing and wanted to be a part of this. Senator Collins has a legacy question here at play. We know that Donald Trump promised to appoint someone who would outlaw abortion and punish women. And he released a list of people that passed the muster of anti-choice groups. And we have every reason to believe Brett Kavanaugh is the fulfillment of that promise. So women from everywhere are counting on Susan Collins to vote no on Kavanaugh, not just from Maine. I can tell you that, I work in D.C. I get calls from people all the time in other states saying, our senators have come out as no's, or we live in a state where we know that our senators, they've already come out as yeses. What can we do? And they're looking to contact NARAL members in other states like Maine because we're all relying on Senator Senator Collins to save our rights and keep us from going backwards. So that's why I'm here. I know other people have a lot of personal stories. I'd encourage people to come up and tell you those stories. You know, the email's kind of the hook of the day, and we have copies of the emails, but for me, the fact that Trump promised to appoint someone who would punish women and criminalize abortion is why I'm here, because I know that Brett Kavanaugh will be the vote to do that. So I don't know if any of my colleagues have something they want to say. People want to join us, step up.
If I could just add also that when I met with the senator last week, which was so gracious of her to take time to meet with me, she was pretty upset when I said, you know, that we protest her office regularly to ask her to continue to support, and she asked if I don't trust her, and I am here because I really, really want to trust her, because I'm so grateful for what she's done, but this is really, really scary, and you know, we really do want to trust her, and thank her for what she's done so far, and but this is a big deal. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
I think there's I'm so sorry, Katie. I definitely want to hear like what you guys have to say, but we also had people travel and come here from different places, and I want to make sure that people get a chance to tell you why this matters to them, because this is personal for people.
I'm Sam. I'm from
Hi,
New York
Sam.
City.
Katie, nice to meet you.
So basically, my parents, my family, we hosted women who had to come in from upstate New York to New York City to get abortions, because in upstate New York, even in a blue state, because of his past rulings, and quite frankly, I think that Senator Collins should really be upset about that he lied to her face, and I think that she should consider that when she considers what type of person she wants to vote for.
The fact that they are not allowed into a public hearing. As you can see, the senators are leaving.
Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us
come here.
If you are not getting arrested, this way. We disrupt. Move this way.
Rebecca.
All the way there. That's why we disrupt. That's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
Just keep backing up. Just keep backing up to the hallway.
The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Walking backwards. Please keep walking backwards. You might want to look backwards so you don't trip. Just keep walking backwards. Keep walking backwards. Watch out. There's a wall and stairs over here. We don't want him falling down the stairs. So keep walking backwards.
Get down these stairs.
Please keep stepping backwards. Please keep stepping backwards. Keep stepping back.
You gotta keep stepping back, man.
Please keep walking backwards. Please keep walking backwards.
Can you move just a little bit? Okay. Great.
If everyone keeps walking backward, you can help everyone out in the front here. That way they're not going to trip and fall. Please keep stepping backward and assist everyone here.
Yeah, what can I do?
I don't know. Okay, here, I'm going to give my phone to her.
Okay. Like everybody here is recording on their phones. Do you want me to talk? Okay. All right. Rebecca. So we are here watching people shout, "Public hearing, let us speak," at the direction of the Senate Judiciary Committee room. Historically public process where public citizens have been barred from in an unprecedented act of secrecy. Much like most of the Supreme Court nomination process, people are getting arrested, and our team is right here exactly on the police line watching it happen.
I'm sorry. What? It's a low down.
Public hearing, let us speak. Public hearing, let us speak.
So, where...
United States Capitol Police, you are demonstrating within the Capitol building, which is against the law. If you do not cease and desist, you will be placed under arrest.
They're arresting people right now. It's unclear how many people are there, at least 30, probably more, and just as many, if not double, the number of police officers as there are citizens. While it was happening, a lot of staffers on the other side were filming the protesters in what felt kind of like a creepy move to me. Nobody here is violent. Everybody is making the very valid claim that this is a public process. It should be open to public citizens.
Hearing, let us speak. Public hearing, let us speak.
So people are being put in zip ties right now.
Public hearings, let us
It's the Capitol Police have swarmed the protesters who, I can't state this enough, were in no way being violent. They were far away from the entrance of the Judiciary Committee. stating quite simply that it's a public hearing and they should be allowed admission. The police line is far enough away, but luckily our team is able to get right up there and you can sort of see what's happening. Protesters are still chanting, God bless them.
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
Man the sign.
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Among the protesters are a lot of the people who were occupying Grassley's office not that long ago. These citizens moved quickly. When it was made apparent that the hearings were going to be closed off to public individuals, they rushed up here and it made their points known as officials were leaving. This is an absurd breach of etiquette. People should be allowed to watch something as important as a Supreme Court nominee to the highest court in the land being questioned for his record and intentions for the American people. Interestingly, though perhaps not unexpectedly, almost all of the people here are women. Spanning.
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
All the way back that way, sir.
All the way back. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
We're going to the elevators.
The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Thank you for representing the majority. Once we clear them,
the system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Put in zip ties and escorted
corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. They are protesting the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly in light of recently released emails by Senator Cory Booker that prove that Brett Kavanaugh does not believe that Roe versus Wade is settled case law and could potentially overturn it should he become a Supreme Court of the United States justice with a lifetime appointment. Our rights are under siege, and we need to fight for them. Our democracy is under siege, and we need to fight. Call your senator today. Tell them to vote no on Brett Kavanaugh.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt.
Go down the hallway this way, or you go in the office, but you're not going to stay here. Nope, not right now. In 5 minutes you will, but you can go down to the end of the hallway there, unless you have a appointment in the office.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt,
Yeah, follow them out. Push them where they're supposed to be.
So you are live watching ACT.tv. We are in one of the Senate office buildings. A number of protesters have just been arrested outside of Senator Murkowski of Alaska's office. They are protesting the nomination and confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court to a lifetime appointment. That would mean jeopardy for women's abortion rights, gun control, environmental rights, workers' rights. So many rights that we Americans take for granted and would like to increase. We need more protections for these rights. In fact, we are outside of the hearing room right now where protesters have just been arrested at Senator Murkowski's office. Protesters have disrupted the hearings all week long and been arrested. There have been vigils. There have been protests in the morning. There are protests in the evening. Call your senator today, 202-224-3121. Ask for your senators from your state and tell them to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. You're watching ACT.tv.
Should we stay here or what? There's nothing here. This is what's happening. Yeah, it took a while to get the mic turned on.
You're watching ACT.tv. This is Sabrina Williams, and we are live in Washington, D.C., right outside of the Senate confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh's lifetime appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. There have been protesters disrupting these hearings all week. There have been protests outside of Senator Murkowski's office of Maine, Senator Grassley's office of Iowa, and Senator Susan Collins' office of Maine. Protesters want all senators, Democrat and Republican, to know that the majority of Americans are not behind Brett Kavanaugh and do not want him appointed to the Supreme Court. That he is the most unpopular Supreme Court nominee in potentially U.S. history, but definitely recent U.S. history. His record on protecting women's right to abortion, on gun rights, gun control, not gun rights, gun control to keep Americans safe from gun violence, et cetera, are abysmal. He is essentially would be a corporate justice, and we need a justice who represents the people. Just recently, protesters gathered outside of Senator Murkowski's office. There were some arrests made. It was a tense scene here at the U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C. Let's take a look at some of that footage of protesters getting arrested with the message of stopping Brett Kavanaugh from a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court, which could potentially mean a huge impact to our democracy, particularly for abortion rights for the nation. Arrest of protesters. Let's watch that footage.
Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak. Kavanaugh makes U.S. weak. Public hearing, let us speak.
Rebecca!
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Rebecca! Rebecca, come here.
The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. If you are not going to disrupt, the system is corrupt. That's why we disrupt. Move this way. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Rebecca.
That's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
Please keep backing up.
Just keep backing up to the hallway.
The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Walking backwards. Please keep walking backwards. You might want to look backwards so you don't trip. Just keep walking backwards.
And that's why we
Keep
disrupt.
walking backwards. Watch out, there's a wall and stairs over here. We don't want him falling down the stairs. So keep walking backwards.
And that's why we disrupt. The public hearing.
Please keep stepping backwards. Please keep stepping backwards. Keep stepping back.
You gotta keep stepping back, man.
Please keep walking backwards. Please keep walking backwards.
Can you just a little bit? Okay. Great,
If everyone keeps walking backward, you can help everyone out in the front here. That way they're not going to trip and fall. Please keep stepping backward and assist everyone.
Yeah, what can I do?
I don't know. Okay, here, I'm going to give my phone to her.
Okay. Okay. Like everybody here is recording on their phones. Do you want me to talk? Okay. All right. Rebecca. So we are here watching people shout, "Public hearing, let us speak," at the direction of the Senate Judiciary Committee room. Historically public process where public citizens have been barred from in an unprecedented act of secrecy. much like most of the Supreme Court nomination process, people are getting arrested, and our team is right here exactly on the police line watching it happen.
Public hearing, let us speak. Public hearing, let us speak.
So, where...
United States Capitol Police, you are demonstrating within the Capitol building, which is against the law. If you do not cease and desist, you will be placed under arrest.
They're arresting people right now. It's unclear how many people are there, at least 30, probably more, and just as many, if not double, the number of police officers as there are citizens. While it was happening, a lot of staffers on the other side were filming the protesters in what felt kind of like a creepy move to me. Nobody here is violent. Everybody is making the very valid claim that this is a public process. It should be open to public citizens. So people are being put in zip ties right now. It's the Capitol Police have swarmed the protesters who, I can't state this enough, were in no way being violent. They were far away from the entrance of the Judiciary Committee, stating quite simply that it's a public hearing and they should be allowed admission. The police line is far enough away, but luckily our team is able to get right up there and you can sort of see what's happening. Protesters are still chanting, God bless them.
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt.
Man, the sign.
And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt. And that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt.
Among the protesters are a lot of the people who were occupying Grassley's office not that long ago. These citizens moved quickly. When it was made apparent that the hearings were going to be closed off to public individuals, they rushed up here and made their points known as officials were leaving. This is an absurd breach of etiquette. People should be allowed to watch something as important as a Supreme Court nominee to the highest court in the land being questioned about his record and intentions for the American people. Interestingly, though perhaps not unexpectedly, almost all of the people here are women, spanning everything from what looked like
Sir.
All the way back. We disrupt. All the way back. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt.
We're going to the elevator.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is
Once we clear them,
the
then
system
we'll...
is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is
Corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. They are protesting the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly in light of recently released emails by Senator Cory Booker that prove that Brett Kavanaugh does not believe that Roe versus Wade is settled case law and could potentially overturn it should he become a Supreme Court of the United States justice with a lifetime appointment. Our rights are under siege, and we need to fight for them. Our democracy is under siege, and we need to fight. Call your senator today. Tell them to vote no on Brett Kavanaugh.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt.
Go down the hallway this way, or you go in the office, but you're not going to stay here. Nope, not right now. In 5 minutes you will, but you can go down to the end of the hallway there, unless you have a appointment in the office.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt.
So,
Yeah, follow them out. Push where you're supposed to be.
So this, you are live watching Act TV. We are in one of the Senate office buildings. You've been watching Act TV live in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Senate buildings. We have been at the offices of Senator Murkowski, Senator Collins, and Senator Grassley. You have seen protesters demanding that their senators vote the way the American people want, and that is a resounding no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh as the Supreme Court Justice of the United States. Brett Kavanaugh has now essentially lied or not been forthcoming about his ideas on whether Roe v. Wade is settled case law, despite what he told Republican and Democratic senators during the pre-hearing process. We now find, thanks to Senator Cory Booker last night, who released some confidential emails from Senator Kavanaugh during his time in the Bush White House. He wrote in an email that he did not believe that Roe v. Wade was settled case law. This is extremely important. This is the person who will likely be the tie-breaking vote on the Supreme Court for at least a generation or two to come. And this isn't just about abortion rights. This is about gun control rights, voting rights, the environment, workers' rights, so many things that we take for granted in our democracy and that we need the U.S. Supreme Court to help us further continue, expand access to, not someone to take us back 50, 75 years. We are right outside of the Kavanaugh hearings in the Senate building. There's a heavy police presence. There are protesters who have been here all morning, many of which have gotten arrested. If you watch this live stream back, you will see that. There's something you can do at home, and that is to pick up your phone and call 202-224-3121. Ask for your senators. There are 2 from your state. Tell them that you are with the American people, you are with democracy, you are with women, and want abortion rights for everyone. Roe v. Wade is settled law. Vote no on Kavanaugh's confirmation. Again, this is Act TV, and we are right outside of the confirmation hearings, and Congressperson walking by who's just spoken, Gutierrez, who just spoke outside of the confirmation hearings. Again, call your senators and tell them to vote no on the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. This is Sabrina Williams. You've been watching ACT TV. We are live in Washington, D.C.